Welcome to Starting Lineup for Week 15 with Andrew Wiebe. I'm Jason Saghini. We are back, reunited, and it feels so good.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
We are here to help your fantasy team. Thankfully, our singing skills do not matter at all when it comes to that. We are going to take you into what is a complicated week in Week 15. A lot of players missing because of international absences, a lot of buys. You have 3 transfers to use. We're going to help you figure it all out. But first, we're going to take a look at the poll, which has to do with your wild card, which may be helping you get through all of this week.
Yeah, of course, that's one of the big decisions in fantasy this year. When will you use that wild card that's free at any time? As you can see from the results here, most of you think that you used it way too early, some still saving it for a crisis. In my case, I used it early, but I think that was a good decision. Helped set me up for some international breaks, get my team where it wanted me, and it also forced me to look ahead. I had to strategize because I knew I didn't have that wild card. One quick note, remember you have the second. It can only be used in rounds 21 through 25, so make sure you keep that in mind when you're considering that second wild card.
Well, I used my wild card last week to help me get ready for this run coming up. Unfortunately, Jamison Olave and Obafemi Martins were 2 of the guys I picked up,
That
which
hurts.
throws a wrench into things. But let's take a look at the schedule coming up over the next few weeks. There are 4 teams that have double fixture weeks next week, and that is Montreal, Portland, Colorado, and Vancouver. So you're going to want to try to figure out a way to get those guys into your lineups. The problem, of course, some teams have buys before, some teams have buys after. The 2 teams that play this week and have a double fixture next week, Portland and Vancouver. So Andrew, when it comes down to Portland, who are you looking at?
Well, with Portland's case, I think you look first up top. Of course, no Ryan Johnson. Jamaica plays the U.S. in Kingston on Friday. Frederick Picayune could be a good pickup for you. Had 4 goals in U.S. Open Cup. Certainly MLS competition much higher than the Wilmington Hammerheads, but he has a chance to be productive there. He appears to be the one to get the start up top. I think Michael Harrington also a guy you want to look at. In that defense, he's had 5 games of 7 points or more. He's also fairly cheap at $4.9 million. Has a good reward there, especially with 2 games coming up in Week 16.
All right, I'll say this. I'm not high on Picayune and what he's going to be able to do. He scored a lot of those goals against Wilmington on headers in the box. I think MLS competition is going to be more organized in the back. I actually like Valencia if he gets on the field, but you'll want to see what happens this week with Valencia. If he's in the starting lineup and he does well, maybe you go for it in next week when they have 2 games. So the other team I got to ask you about now, Vancouver, the Whitecaps. Who are you looking at on the Whitecaps?
Well, for me, it's one guy. I said last week, look, there's not many that you want to pick up from this team, but that one guy is Kenny Miller. He's played in 4 games this year. He's got 24 points. He simply gets it done when he's in the lineup. They're a better team with him. He's the guy to take a chance on, especially with 2 home games, New England and then Chivas USA. We all know about Chivas USA at this point.
All right, the other 2 guys I would maybe give a shot to there are Camilo and Brad Knighton. Brad Knighton looks to have solidified himself as the starting goalkeeper. Again, playing Chivas, that could be a shutout there. Let's move on to the other questions that have come in. We've gotten a lot of questions on Landon Donovan, including this one. He says, is Donovan too much of a liability at this point because of his spotty performances? Is it worth keeping him going into this tough schedule?
I say no. You know that he has these games. There's not going to be a bye. He'll probably be playing in a position to score goals, but we've seen it already this season. He's so hot and cold. If he's hot, you would love to have him on your team. You're looking at 15 points, something around in that range. When he's cold, you're not getting production at $10.5 million. It's difficult for me to justify that expense. And at RSL and then versus Portland, that's not an easy schedule for Landon Donovan in the Galaxy.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with Andrew here, and I'm going to say stick with Donovan. He does have a tough schedule coming up, but what it is, it's a consistent schedule. He has games every week, and you want to get him in the lineup. Plus, there's not a lot of other guys to go with who are at that value. Most of those guys are off with their national teams now anyway, so who are you going to get to replace him? The one thing is, with Donovan's schedule, as tough as it is, last year he scored 2 goals and had an assist when they went to RSL, and he had a goal and an assist against Portland in 2 games at home last year, and also had 5 shots on goal. So look, it's not the same Portland team, I understand that, but you have Landon Donovan, and as long as Keane's not there, he's likely to be playing forward. So for me, that means get Landon Donovan in your lineup. I think that game against New England was an aberration. You're not going to see that again from the LA Galaxy. All right, moving on. Speaking of that game against New England, Diego Fagundes, topic for the last couple weeks, everybody wants to know, is it too late to jump on the Diego Fagundes train, or can I get some benefit from picking him up now?
Hey, it's never too late, and for the value he provides at just over $6 million, I'd say jump on the train. I've been reaping the rewards with him just like Jack McInerney earlier in the year. 4 straight games with a goal. He had 2 assists last week. He is bursting with confidence. They don't have a bye until week 17, but I think, Jason, you'll still want to keep him even though they have that little break.
Yeah, they are playing Chivas USA after that break. This week, they're playing DC United at home. And look, the same goes for Chivas as DC United.
Easy points.
You want the guys who are playing those teams now while they're struggling. It's going to take them a while to figure it out, and you're going to reap the rewards if you have guys playing against them. So actually, on top of that, I picked up Sire Sen this week to pair him up top with Diego Fagundes. That's how confident I am in the New England Revolution playing DC at home. Moving on, Josh Williams, a guy who I've said in the past has to be on your fantasy team because he's going forward all the time for the Columbus Crew. Has not been scoring a ton of fantasy points lately, and now a question comes in from Brooke who says, is it time to get rid of him? What's going on?
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's going to play this week, and Chad Barson starting for him at right back for the Crew last week. 3 points, not terrible, but certainly not a guy that's going to get forward for you and have a big reward. If you're looking at staying in Columbus, if you're determined to stay on that back line, Tyson Wall at left back, probably a better option. 4.4 million. He's more consistent, has more opportunities to get forward, has a good left foot. Although that team without Eddie Gavin, you have to wonder how that offense is going to react.
Yeah, I would just steer clear of the Columbus Crew right now. I don't think there's anything there that you have to have.
Plenty of other options on the defensive line.
Sure. All right, next question coming in from Keegan. He says, is Donovan Ricketts available this week, or should I make a move from Shuttleworth? And I'll pair this with the next question, who says, who is the best goalkeeper to pick up over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, as we said before, Jamaica play the U.S. in Kingston Friday night. That Saturday game, you can bet he will not be back for that one. Personally, I picked up Bobby Shuttleworth, 3 straight shutouts, 6 out of 11 on the season with shutouts. I think he's a good play, but you mentioned it before. Brad Knighton might be the best play. I'm kicking myself a little bit for not seeing that one. Those 2 home games in Week 16, New England and then Chivas USA, as we mentioned, those would seem to be points bonanzas. Right now, I would say Knighton is the man to go with if you haven't yet made that goalkeeper switch.
One final question coming in from Brian Cullimore, and we should give him credit. He is the number 4 player in the game, and I know that watching starting lineup is what got you there. Right, Brian? All right, his question. He says, the top 3 guys have a huge lead on me. How am I going to catch up to them and close the gap? And I think the answer here is clear. You have to do it by picking a captain who isn't what everyone else is going to pick, and it's got to be a guy who comes through in the clutch for you.
Yeah, you've got to get points where other people are not getting points. If your whole lineup is matching up with theirs, your Graham Zusis, Aurelian Collins, guys like that have been consistent producers, you're not going to make up the gap. Too many similarities, so you need to diversify your options. Still need to have some of those guys. You got to get the points they provide, but you need some wild cards. This week, I'd look at guys like Diego Fagundes. We already talked about him. Maybe they haven't picked him up yet. Kenny Miller, I think, only owned by 1.8% of the owners out there. He's a good bet for them as well, especially with the double week coming next week. And then Bobby Shuttleworth, like I said, I still think that this week, at least, against DC United, he's a good bet to get some points and maybe a guy the other owners aren't looking at.
All right, that's all we have for the starting lineup this week. We will be back on starting lineup next Thursday ahead of that weekend. Again, send all your questions to @MLS Fantasy. You can also post them in the comments section here. Good luck this weekend. Enjoy the games. We'll see you next week.